So, we're looking here at the map of the United States, and we're going to think about if we were to make Amtrak a viable system for the United States, how would we do it? So, on the right here, I have a spreadsheet I've composed. We have every city in the United States all the way down to down to Aberdeen, South Dakota, at 42,000 people in their county, their primary statistical area. And all the way at the top, of course, is the Big Apple, New York, New York, 23 million people in the greater New York area. So, one thing I'm interested in is travel, and Amtrak is greatly lacking in this country and its potential for a lot of growth. So what we're going to do today is we're going to design using Inkscape, a simple Linux application for images, the proper system for Amtrak in America. So first, we're just going to do some dots here for the big cities of the United States. So we got New York, Los Angeles, really big area, Chicago, DC, and Baltimore is included as well, San Francisco, and we're just going to keep going. So these are the largest cities by population in America: Boston, Philadelphia. So you can already see the cluster in the Northeast, which everyone knows about, of course. Dallas is a huge area. Miami's a very long city. Houston is just sprawl. Atlanta. Detroit is right there. Seattle, Washington, the closest to where I live. Not going to get to my city on this video. Phoenix, Arizona. Minneapolis, Minnesota. I live in Bellingham, Washington myself. It's a small little city, and we're in the northwest corner of the United States, and it's absolutely beautiful. Don't tell anyone about it, because it's great, and we don't want to spoil it. So we're just going through here, and we're just adding all these cities. Because at the end of this, we're going to be connecting them in the most efficient way possible. We're only going to go down to 1 million. We're going to make that our limit. Orlando. I have another map here which I made based not on population, but on this other column, which I call power. It's just simply the population of a city divided by the distance to the closest larger American city. I've also done the same thing for all of North America, and it gives you some really interesting results. Sacramento, Charlotte, North Carolina, and when we make this a single screen, we're going to really be able to see, here's Kansas City, the difference between the two. Salt Lake, I was thinking I might just make this before the video like I did for the other, but, Columbus, it doesn't really make... I thought it might be more fun to just have people be able to see the cities appear on the map, and it gives you an idea of, as America grows, which most people don't do. But I think it's a good thing to understand the size of the country and what we're really looking at. Should have made Chicago more that way, but it doesn't matter. Raleigh, North Carolina, it's about there. Nashville, Tennessee. We finally get to Nashville. What you'll notice here is that there are some cities which people don't think about so much, but other cities have big cultural impacts. People think of, like New Orleans. I haven't got there yet. We might not even get there on this map. Greensboro is about there. That's Manchester from there a long time ago. We escaped. Jacksonville, Hartford. Got out of that place. That's where my dad was born, right there in Hartford, Connecticut. Louisville. Grandma was born in Kentucky. Moved up here. Finally, there we get to New Orleans. Then Grand Rapids, about the same size. And then, there we are, Grand Rapids. Greenville, South Carolina is about there. Memphis, Tennessee. It really makes sense to connect all the cities of 1 million people because we know there will be demand, and it really gets us to see the population distribution of the United States. Richmond, Virginia. I just lost my great uncle earlier this year in Richmond, Indiana, which is right there. So every time I see Richmond, I think about my great grandfather and his brother. It's kind of fun. Rochester, Buffalo, and Albany. Got a whole trio of New York cities right next to each other. I pulled this date a little while back. It might be a little out of date, but it's good enough for now. Albuquerque. Tulsa. Look, we still haven't got to San Antonio yet. It's not that big. But it's very rural, very isolated. So it, like New Orleans, even though it's on the power map, gets more notes than it otherwise would. Fresno. And then Dayton, Ohio. 1,000,000 people, so it's on the map. Tucson, Arizona. El Paso, Texas, which is 350 kilometers from the nearest city. I don't use. And then Cape Coral. Down here in Florida. Alright, so if we minimize this, maximize that. That's the other map I'll look at in a little bit. This is a map of every city in the United States, which has over 1,000,000 people. I excluded Hawaii because it doesn't really matter for the purpose of what we're doing here. So there we go. Then we want to draw freehand lines. So the first thing you will notice is that the eastern United States has a lot of big cities. And if we wanted to design an efficient AMTRAK system there, it will be pretty easy. So let's just go here, get black, just start drawing lines. Just the ones that look close to each other. Doesn't have to be fancy. The northeast corridor is, of course, very important. I'm going to do that, that, and that. They're all 1,000,000 people. I mean, there will be demand for each of those lines. Bring this out east. But they're really close ones you have. Let's go out from Dayton. It's really central with 3 other majorly large cities. And then Chicago to Indianapolis. Oh, look at that. Finish up Ohio. And then we're just going to make a curve here from Detroit to there. And here we finish up the Midwest. From Chicago to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Louisville to Cincinnati. Go from Cleveland down to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh over to Harrisburg. Harrisburg down to Baltimore, Washington. And then up to Philadelphia, and then there we go. That covers the Northeast pretty well. Then from DC we go down to Richmond, then we go down to North Carolina. And then from there it's pretty easy to get down to Atlanta. So you notice is that all of that, and yeah, we should connect Virginia Beach, Newport News there. You go there. We'll also put a train out that way. Nashville to Memphis. We'll connect you to Atlanta. St. Louis to Chicago. Kansas City to St. Louis. And then this is a fairly long one, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, but we still need to do it. Here we can see these really short lines. Where did my mouse go? There you go. My eyes lost my mouse for a minute. See how Portland, I'm also going to get the California done. Because these are all close to each other. I like to go to California. See, I haven't been there for a while. Great-grandmother lived. 2 of my great-grandparents. A lot of my great-grandparents lived there. Florida has a bunch of connections, which it needs. Oops, I accidentally made Cape Coral black. Okay. Easy to fix. We just click on it. You just click on that. Alright, now we're back to where we need to be. Cool. The only other city the other close ones, we have Texas. There's Austin, San Antonio, Houston. Connect you to Austin as well. There. I mean, if it's a little redundant and there's no demand for it, you connect up to there. This is a rather long one from Houston, New Orleans up to there. And so now we've connected most of the country. Phoenix goes to LA and to Tucson and to El Paso, up to Albuquerque and up to Denver. From Denver, it's a good place to get to Kansas City. And from here we can get out to Dallas. Alright, we have now connected almost all of the country. Salt Lake City goes to Denver, Las Vegas to Salt Lake City. Some of these lines are really far. But let's think. We can delete lines later. We're making a complete map first. Okay. And then we can say, what if we just wanted to be stingy and say we're not going to do all these really long lines. And this Georgia to Jacksonville line there, which is a long one. It's a long ride with not a lot between. You go down to here, and I think we've connected the entire country. I want a direct train east from San Francisco. So yeah, that's a free-drawn map of what Amtrak could be, using only cities with over 1 million people in the United States. So the main message here is to say, but let's say we want to get rid of the longest routes. So let's do that. We get rid of this. Let's just save as is. So we can go back to that. Getting rid of the longest routes. That's a long one. This one. The ones that will probably be less. That's all. Unfortunately, all the same. But those two would go away. This one's long. Both of them. That one's a long one. But besides these two links here, almost all of the lines are now very, rather short as train lines go on a global scale. And especially when you get east of the border between North Dakota, Minnesota down to Texas, Louisiana, if you look at density maps, you find there are lots of other cities that don't make onto the 1 million people, but are still significant, that are relevant. So Amtrak doesn't come anywhere close to this. Let's start with that. So if you look at what Amtrak has now, this is the current service. F11. And so you see that a whole bunch of cities that are on my other one, like Columbus, Ohio, missing. Nashville, Tennessee is missing. But here they're central links because they're big cities. And Columbia, Charleston, Savannah, no offense meant, are just not really that large. But yet they are where the main line down to Jacksonville is. But the line to Atlanta, the closest big city outside Florida to Jacksonville, you'd have to go a very long route, circuitous, which means no one's going to ride it. Whereas here, we can see that the most high demand routes for the country, which I assume will be where more than 1 million people are fairly common, especially east of the Mississippi. So yeah, those are things Amtrak can do right now to increase ridership. Another way of looking at it is so what I did here is going back to my spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets. I took all of the cities in the United States and I did this power function. So what you see here is it is the distance, the closest larger American population statistical area, divided by its population rank. I also did here divided by the actual times the actual population. So Otherwise, it gets a little screwy. So if we rank by that, which wouldn't be very different from the other, we will see that there will be some cities, like particularly Boise, Idaho, has less than 1 million people, but it's more significant by this metric than several cities with over 1 million people. Spokane, Washington didn't make it onto the map at all, with just over 500,000, but is more significant than Hartford, Connecticut, or Austin, Texas, due to its isolation. So, the way I did this other map is I did it by the distance closest to larger American PSA, which is something I just basically hacked together myself. And so I did all of these cities up to above 300 kilometers from the nearest city. So back to our F11 and back to here. This is what that actually looks like. So it makes it really clear that there are many cities that are missing and many cities that are also pop up, like Medford, Oregon and Eureka, California, that otherwise just simply were not big enough to really matter on the other end. So if we try connecting these, we still see that all of these cities are a 2-hour train ride or more from the largest city, but we're still finding that a lot of them are really close, relatively speaking. But still, what we really need to do is make a map by the power. So what we can do with that is we can, just have 11 there. I have another file here that has blank US states map. Open. Roommate's playing some drums right now. I won't be here much longer at the moment, but we'll see where life takes me. And here we have, okay. All these maximized windows are getting in the way. Alright, there we go. So we've done it by the ones that are very distant. We've done one now by population. The last one I'm going to do on this video is we're going to do this by this PSA power variable that I derived. The most important one, of course, is, guess what? The Big Apple. New York, New York. We're just going to see what it looks like. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I know, shocked. Dallas, Miami, Atlanta, Seattle pops up here. With not even 4 million people, Seattle is so isolated that it pops up pretty quickly. San Francisco is bigger than Seattle, but its proximity to LA is so close. Then we get Washington, D.C., mostly due to its size, which includes Baltimore in its combined statistical area, Denver, Colorado, Boston, Massachusetts. Again, we have so many big cities up in the Northeast. We really need to get high-speed rail up there as fast as possible. Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, again, very big, but its proximity to Dallas makes it fall down the ranking quickly. Detroit, Michigan, mostly due to its size. Minneapolis, Minnesota, due to its isolation. Salt Lake City, Utah, isolation again. St. Louis, Missouri, size. Philadelphia, due to only its size, pops up this soon. Cleveland, Ohio, and Orlando, Florida. Not Tampa. Orlando's first. And then Charlotte. Then Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm going to determine when to stop at some point. Cincinnati, Las Vegas. Once we have most of the major cities covered. New Orleans. Doesn't have is just 1.5 million people, but its isolation shoots it up the ranking. Ahead of Portland, which is much bigger than and better connected than New Orleans. and San Antonio, Texas, due to its distance. Nashville, Tennessee. It doesn't have to be perfect. San Diego, California. Albuquerque, very isolated. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Virginia Beach. Memphis, Tennessee. Oklahoma City. So the reason I did it this way is there were a lot of cities that pop up in the population quickly, but their proximity to other cities makes them so they're almost like, it's almost due to local rail. And we're thinking about a national rail system. It's not just important, we want something that's going to be of national importance. So you guys say like Boise. It's not that large, but its isolation means there's no, it really needs to be part of a national network. There's no other way they're going to get anything. McAllen is so isolated from other American cities. Not too far from Monterey. Columbus, the capital. And then Indianapolis, couldn't be far. And then Sacramento. Most of the same cities we did for 1 million, but there are also some others who popped up. And I think it's a good way to think about geography. Tampa, Jacksonville, to Florida is a big state, of course they have Birmingham, Knoxville, Michigan, and Fresno, California. That's my friend once. Milwaukee, very close to Chicago. It's only 130 kilometers to Chicago, but it's so large that it matters in this variable. Spokane, Hartford, again, due almost only to its size. Louisville, Kentucky, same thing. Omaha, Nebraska, due to isolation. Austin, Texas, due only to its size, because it's very close to San Antonio. Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, just figure out when I want to stop. There's still a couple. Charleston, Greensboro. I think that's pretty good. We can do the capital and get some representation for Arkansas. Not every state's going to be on this. There are a bunch that are missing. Tucson, Arizona. Just because they don't have very many people and we're focusing on population. Because of politics, these 4 Great Plains states would probably get service regardless, even if it's not profitable for AMTRAK. I'm not opposed to that. But alright, I think we hit almost every 1 million person city now. Dayton, we missed Dayton and Cape Coral and Rochester due to their proximity, but we missed 3 million person cities, but I think that's pretty good. So here we go. Make this full screen. So there we go. This is all of the cities based on their population and proximity to other cities that are larger than them. And what you see is that you have basically 2 big clusters. This cluster here, and then this cluster in the west, and 3, and then the northwest. Because really, between El Paso and Dallas and San Antonio, you've got Midland and Odessa, but they're pretty small, and that's really about it. West Texas is a pretty empty area, branches, and it's very rural. But then you get in the west some cities that are close by. So here we could do the same thing if we wanted to, but you can really see the distribution of where Americans live, mostly in the east and the southwest, with a few of us up here in the northwest. So that's an interesting way to think about American politics. Then we could just draw lines between these spots, kind of like we did on, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Kind of like we did here, we get a similar result. With some more lines, of course. But yeah, so that's a way of thinking about the United States, geography, and how Amtrak can serve almost all Americans. This would cover probably at least 80% of all Americans in the country due to urbanization. And yeah, hopefully someday Amtrak will get the funding it needs and get right-of-way for rails to make this a reality. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day and be well.